This is lesson number 3 from Metal Tech over layout work. It's in chapter 6, pages 97 to 108 of your textbook. If you need to stop this video at any time to fill in your descriptors or sketch your images, make sure that you do that. Lesson number 3 is over layout. What layout is the locating and marking of lines, circles, arcs, and points. The picture up here on the top right is a picture of somebody that's just pulling layout or performing layout using something very basic. So they're just using a ruler and a scriber point. You guys are going to learn how to do a couple of different types of layout techniques in this class for sheet metal. One is going to be using layout fluid and line development tools such as marking gauges, scribers, that sort of stuff. And there's also going to be one that we do call the direct transfer method. What layout tools are essentially just the tools used to transfer the information to the metal. So this word right here, if you had to sum up lesson 3 in one word, it would have to be this word right here, transfer. So that's what layout tools do. So they take the information from a blueprint and they put them onto an actual physical, tangible piece of material. One of the most common layout tools is something called a combination set. The combination set pictured over here has 3 different heads. The square head is this one here, center head is this one here, and bevel protractor is this one here. The rule is the middle part, so it's the ruler. All of these heads will slide onto the rule. You won't have all 3 of these heads on your combination set at once. They do come off. So this one here, the square head, you can make marks at 90 degrees or 45 degrees. This one, the center head, you would take a round object and you would put it right here in the middle where my cursor is, and then you would be able to find the center line of it. So based upon where this line is, if you can see, it actually works out pretty good with this red dot where the center of this round object would be. This one is the bevel protractor. You can set this at any angle that you want. So you would make a line here at any angle that you would want based upon this. The scriber, this is an example of a scriber. It's also called a scratch awl. It's AWL. So a scriber or a scratch awl. When you use these, what you're doing is you're just going to be scratching the metal. So they do have to have a pretty sharp needle-like point on the end. The scratch awl or scriber that you're going to use in this class looks a little bit different than this. It actually looks closer to a screwdriver. It has a different handle on this end, but these parts here are going to be almost identical, a really sharp point. One of the most important tools to make lines really nice and straight on the edge of a project is something called a marking gauge. A marking gauge is a parallel line development tool. The way a marking gauge works is this brass looking thing here. This is a screw. When you loosen this screw up, this part here, this wood piece, will slide up and down. So this thing's called a fence. When it slides up and down, you're going to get it to your desired measurement away from this thing right here where my cursor is. If you look really close, you will see that this is some type of a metal point. That's actually a scriber point. So what that's going to do is that's going to give you a sharp point that you're going to be able to scratch your metal. Now, whatever distance you want this to be set at, you'll have to read. This one does not have our measurements on this side that you can see, but all the marking gauges that we have in class are rulers. So everything up and down here you'll see divided like a ruler. So once you get it set to your measurement, tighten that down and then you'll scratch your project. There's going to be a point where we need to use a tool called a prick punch to mark points. So when we have intersections, we're going to use the tool called a prick punch. Now these are a set of punches. The prick punch is most likely this one here because it's the sharpest pointed one. So it has a 30-degree angle tip, so it's a little bit sharper than this next one, which is called a center punch. Center punch will probably be this one or this one here, because the angle of the tip is a lot more blunt. So a prick punch is going to go first and mark your spots. Then if you would need to actually drill a hole in your project or whatever it is you're working on, you would then come back later with a center punch. So prick punch goes first, then a center punch comes second. The only way these will work is if you take and hold them in here and apply pressure on these ends with a ball peen hammer. So you'll hold it up, you'll stand it up vertically, mark your point, and hammer it down. If you need to make circles that are large, you're going to use something called a set of trammels. These are trammels up here. If you look close, you see that there's a needle point here and a needle point here. This is a ruler, and what you're going to do is you're going to set this point in the center point of your circle, and then you would take this one and grab it and walk it around the circle. So you would just make sure that when you're setting this distance here, you know that this distance is going to be a radius. So if you wanted to make a circle that was 4 inches in diameter, so all the way around would be 4 inches, you would set your radius here to 2 inches. If you set this to 4 inches, you would have a circle that's 8 inches in diameter. So trammels, layout tool with 2 scriber points used to draw large circles. When you want to draw small circles, you're going to use these guys. These are called dividers. So dividers look a lot like a compass from math class. The only difference is, instead of it having a pencil point and a needle point, these have 2 needle points, because we're going to be drawing on metal. Pencils don't show up very good on sheet metal, so we have to actually scratch the metal itself. So these are going to be used to draw smaller arcs and circles. Layout fluid is this stuff here. It's going to be a blue dye. Inside of this bottle, you unscrew this cap, and as you pull this cap up, there's going to be like a paintbrush in here. What you do with this stuff is you're going to coat a piece of metal. So when you coat your piece of metal, you're going to turn it all this blue color. It just so happens to be this one is steel blue. There are red layout fluids, but for the most part we are able to get the blue stuff. So when you do this, you're going to coat your metal all one color. The reason you do that is because when you take a tool like this, like a divider or trammels or a scriber or a marking gauge, all you're doing is scratching the metal. So when you use this stuff, it's kind of like the opposite of using a marker or a pen or something like that, because the ink is already on the project and you're just scratching it off. So when you scratch it off, you're going to see these lines show up as kind of like a really shiny silver. The essential questions for lesson 3: what's the purpose of layout tools? We talked about this. We said that this whole lesson can be summed up in one word, and that is transfer. So the main thing is here that you're transferring information from a technical drawing to a real world application. So in this class, most of our stuff is going to be, most of our layout tools are going to be used to transfer our information from our blueprint to a piece of metal. If you're looking in your packet somewhere around page 25, that is the blueprint of your first project. That is the nail pan project that we're going to be starting really quickly. So we could take that information and transfer it to our metal. This last one, I want you to describe a tool that you may have used in the past, a layout tool. What did it look like and what did you use it for? So you answer this on your own, get your best answer that you can. We discuss a lot of times in class something called a chalk line for construction. So that would be a perfectly good example of a layout tool. Even in the most basic form, if you have just used a ruler as a straight edge and made a straight line using that, that would be an acceptable answer for a layout tool. That's going to do it for lesson 3. As always, make sure you stop by and ask me if you have any questions. View this as many times as you need. Thank you.